If you're a young guy right now and you feel like you're behind financially, you're not imagining it. And it's not just because everything costs more. We covered that. This is something different. There's a specific set of economic and structural shifts that have hit young men harder than most people talk about. And the data backs it up. Today we're going to look at exactly what's happening. The education gap, the income gap, the wealth gap, and what you can actually do about it. No politics, no blame, just the numbers. Now let me be clear about what this video is and what it isn't. This isn't about comparing men to women or saying one group has it harder than another. The reality is the cost of living crisis is hitting everyone. We talked about this in the last video, but there are specific patterns shown up in the data that affect young men in particular. And if you're a young guy sitting there feeling stuck financially and not understanding why, then this video is going to give you some clarity. So let's get into it. The education gap that nobody talks about. For the first time in American history, there are now 2.4 million more women than men enrolled in undergraduate programs on U.S. campuses. 2.4 million women. Women now make up nearly 60% of total undergraduate enrollment. And this isn't a new trend that just appeared. It's been building since 1996. Every single year since then, women have entered college at higher rates than men. Here's the degree completion data that really hits. 47% of women ages 25 to 34 now hold a bachelor's degree or higher. For men in the same age group, that number is 37%, a 10-point gap, and it's widening. Now here's why this matters financially. Adults with bachelor degrees earn about 67% more on average than those with only a high school diploma, and that keeps growing. So when young men opt out of college at higher rates, or start but don't finish, they're entering the labor market at a structural disadvantage that compounds over decades. And this isn't about intelligence, it's about a system that, for a lot of young men, isn't connecting with them early enough to keep them in. Now let's talk about what happens when young men do enter the workforce. Here's something most people don't know. Among workers ages 25 to 34, the gender wage gap is actually near parity. Women in that age group earn about 95 cents for every dollar that men earn. So this isn't a video about one group earning more than another at the starting line. The real issue for young men right now is what they're earning compared to what everything costs. The median income for men working full-time in 2024 was $71,090. Sounds decent on paper, right? But you need $106,000 a year just to afford a medium-priced home at today's mortgage rates. The math doesn't work. And for a lot of young men without a college degree who are entering the workforce in fields that start lower, the age gap is even wider. The income they're earning made sense in a world where things cost what they used to cost. Well, that world is gone. The homeownership wall. This one hits different when you look at the generational comparison. When baby boomers were 27 years old, 40.5% of them owned a home. Well, when Gen Z turned 27 in 2024, only 32.6% owned a home. And home ownership isn't just about having a place to live. It's historically been the single most reliable vehicle for building wealth for the middle class. Homeowners have about 40 times the wealth of renters. 40 times. So when young men, especially those without college degrees, can't get into home ownership in their 20s and early 30s the way previous generations did, they're not just delaying a milestone, they're delaying the primary wealth building tool that the generation before them used to get ahead. And the longer that window stays closed, the wider the gap between them and the older generation gets. The isolation factor. Here's the part of this conversation that rarely makes it into a finance video. Financial anxiety doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits on top of everything else. And for young men in America right now, the data on social connections is genuinely alarming. 1 in 4 U.S. men under the age of 35, or 25%, say they felt lonely. That's significantly higher than the national average of 18%, higher than young women in the same age group, and higher than young men in nearly every other wealthy country in the world. And separate data shows that the percentage of men who report having no close friends has gone from 3% in 1990 to 15% today. Well, why does this belong in a financial video? Because financial stress, isolation, and mental health don't stay in separate boxes. When you're isolated, your decision-making changes, your risk tolerance changes, your ability to build the kind of professional and social networks that actually move careers forward, that changes too. The financial gap and the connection gap are feeding each other. And that's a conversation most people aren't willing to have. Alright, so let's talk about what you actually do with all of this, because this video isn't meant to be a list of problems with no path forward. First, understand that education ROI clearly before making a decision. College isn't the only path. The data shows men are going into trades at high rates, and men make up roughly 90% of active registered apprentices in the U.S., and skilled trades are increasingly well compensated. The mistake isn't skipping college. The mistake is skipping credentials and skills entirely. Whatever path you choose, you need something that compounds over time. Second, attack the housing gap differently than previous generations did. The 20% down payment, 30-year fixed rate mortgage your parents used, that playbook is harder now. But it's not the only playbook. House hacking is an option. Buying a small multifamily property and renting out units is how a lot of young men are getting their foot in the door and offsetting their mortgages at the same time. Third, build your network deliberately. The data is clear that young men are increasingly isolated, and isolation is expensive, professionally and personally. The people who get ahead financially aren't just the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who build relationships that open doors. That takes intentional effort, and it doesn't happen by accident. Fourth, stop measuring yourself against the wrong timeline. Your parents' financial milestones happened in a different economic reality. Owning a home by 25, married by 27, retiring at 65, that was a completely different game with different rules. Understanding the actual game you're playing right now with current numbers and current costs is the only way to build a strategy that actually works. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. What's the single biggest financial obstacle you're dealing with right now as a young man? Is it housing, income, debt, or is it something else? I read every response, and I'm going to use your answers to shape the next video in this series. And if this video connected with you, send it to somebody in your circle that needs it. The feeling of being financially behind isn't weakness. It's a rational response to a system that has genuinely gotten harder to navigate and a set of structural shifts that nobody bothered to explain to most men coming up. But here's what I know after looking at all of this data. The gap is real. The obstacles are real, but none of them are permanent. The young men who figure this out, who understand the actual terrain, build real skills, build real connections, and stop comparing their chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10. Comparison is the thief of joy. You've got time. Use it with clear eyes. I'll see you guys in the next one. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I upload every Wednesday. I'll see you guys in the next one.